afternoon, and thank you for stopping by Across the Fence. I'm Keith Silva. According to the home buying website Zillow, the median list price for a home in Vermont as of May 31st was $486,667. Zillow puts the inventory of homes for sale at 1,825. As many prospective home buyers can attest, those numbers add up to a housing crisis. Our guest today has crunched the numbers on Vermont housing. Mariya Shcheglovitova works out of UVM Extension's Bennington office as an extension assistant professor in community and economic development. Welcome. Thank you for coming in.
Thanks for having me, Keith.
What have you learned from your research?
Housing costs are at an all-time high. Home ownership is out of reach for many first-time home buyers, and renters and homeowners are spending more and more of their income on housing. But besides looking at the data, I think we need to pay close attention to how we're describing the housing crisis. Is it a supply crisis, an affordability crisis, an overlapping crisis of supply and affordability and climate risk? Because the descriptions that we're using about the housing crisis can guide how we plan for housing policies and strategies.
So perspective really matters. Yes. Whom did you talk to do this research?
So I've been in my role at UVM for about a year, and when I started, my main context for understanding Vermont's housing needs was the Vermont Department of Housing and Community Development Housing Needs Assessment. And this report estimates that Vermont needs between 24 and 36,000, crunch the numbers, but I can't say them, yes. Additional year-round homes by 2029. And to understand the on-the-ground impacts of this identified need, I've been talking to municipal planning professionals, regional planning commissions, nonprofit and for-profit housing developers, housing trusts, real estate agents, yes, and community members across the state to just kind of get a on-the-ground sense of it.
So I'm not great at numbers either. We would need how many homes? 24
to 36,000.
To 36,000, and currently, if we trust Zillow, we have about 1,800.
Those are for sale, right?
For sale,
they're
yeah.
Talking about kind of new construction.
Okay, so new construction, 24 to 36,000.
By 2029.
By 2029. That's not too far away. The first graphic here that goes right into our discussion shows the difference in median home price and median income. I don't think this is a surprise to many people, but seeing it in black and white is shocking. What does this graph mean besides the obvious?
So the thing to notice in this graph is the slope, so the steepness with which those lines are going up. And we can see that housing prices are climbing very steeply, while median household incomes show a much slower, less steep growth. And the trends in this graph have a compounding effect. So if you're a homeowner who bought a house before we saw that pandemic era surge in housing prices, you might be seeing modest gains in wages, but you're building a significant amount of home equity as the value of your home grows. Okay. Meanwhile, if you're someone trying to buy a house when home prices have so dramatically outpaced wages, you might come to realize, as many first-time home buyers have, that home ownership is not something you can afford.
You worked for HUD, the Housing and Urban Development, before coming to Vermont. So you have a much broader perspective. Is this a Vermont emergency, or is housing tight all over the U.S.?
Yeah, that's right. These conditions definitely aren't unique to Vermont, although we might feel them very particularly here. According to the National Association of Realtors, the U.S. median single-family home price hit an all-time high of about $413,000 in 2024. And this is 5 times the national median household income, so if we're thinking about that ratio of home prices to income. And housing experts identify a price to income ratio of about 3 as a good indicator of affordability. Okay. So we're 2 times that affordability indicator. And we're seeing an increase in cost burden homeowners and renters. What cost burden means is that a household is spending more than 30% of their income on housing and utilities, so quite a significant amount of this. In 2023, 24% of homeowners were cost burdened, and cost burden among renters has been at a record high since around 2020. So about half of all renter households nationally are cost burdened. Rising house prices radiate out and affect all aspects of our quality of life. So cost-burdened households have less money available to cover other necessities and can be forced to make difficult trade-offs between housing costs and things like healthcare and food. And homeownership, which we know can be a way to build equity and financial security, is out of reach for many renters. So people are choosing to rent more instead of transitioning to homeownership. So the Harvard Joint Center for Housing Studies reports that as of 2023, only about 13% of renters can afford the down payment, closing costs, and monthly mortgage payments needed to afford a median-priced home.
So there's a lot of factors here. If you buy a home, it's difficult to sort of, all the money you make goes into the home. If you are trying to get a home, the homes are too expensive, affordability, inventory, everything like that. So how do you do it? How do you get from, people are buying homes are going on sale, people are buying them. How are they doing it, Mariya?
Well, one statistic that I think is really interesting, and the National Association of Realtors reports this, is that in 2024, 1 in 4 first-time homebuyers reported using a gift or loan from family or friends to afford their down payment. So this means that first-time homebuyers are coming to rely on forms of assistance that draw on intergenerational family and community wealth that might not be available to everyone. And I just want to kind of draw on some of my work with HUD to put it in broader context. So public housing assistance programs can step in to fill in some of these financial gaps for both homeowners and renters. Federal rental assistance programs like housing choice vouchers, public housing, and low-income housing tax credits, and these are kind of the primary federal rental assistance programs. They help around 5 million households nationally. And most households assisted by these programs have extremely low incomes and include children, older adults, or a person with a disability. And HUD offers a pathway for transitioning rental assistance vouchers to receive monthly assistance to make mortgage payments, so kind of helping with some of that down payment assistance. And all public housing authorities that administer HUD rental assistance programs have the option to establish what's called a housing choice voucher homeownership program, and that can step in and help fill some of those gaps for folks who don't maybe have family or community that can give them a loan. But that program is only currently available through about 22% of public housing authorities, so it's not very widely available. In response to some cuts to federal programs, the Vermont State Housing Authority announced in May that they're going to close their rental assistance waiting list. And this list contains around 3,000 applicants, which is approximately the same amount of people in the state who are already receiving federal rental assistance. And they won't issue new vouchers due to these reductions in federal funding. And I think it's important to say that federal rental assistance isn't an entitlement. So low-income households who might be eligible for this, not all of them receive it. Only about 1 in 4 eligible households nationally receive federal rental assistance.
Okay, we're going to stay with renting for a second. Vermont lacks rent control laws, especially and renter protections. Is that more difficult in Vermont to be a renter?
Well, we've talked about some of the affordability challenges of renting, and again, these emerging cuts to rental assistance programs. But like you said, there certainly are other vulnerabilities that can be associated with renting. Housing quality is one that I think of that can really highlight the power imbalance between renters and landlords. So in these situations, when there's limited affordable housing options, particularly housing options that meet housing quality standards, renters can face substandard living conditions and have very little power to improve those living conditions. And just to give you a sense, a 2021 report identified the Northeast as having the highest rate of housing inadequacy because the housing stock here is the oldest in the nation. Yeah.
So you're going to have more lead paint possibly on the walls. You're going to have things have run down a little bit more. We've got a couple of minutes left. I want to hit on 2 quick things. One is second home ownership. That's one of the issues that we hear about in Vermont a lot. As just a casual observer to this, I would say I don't think the first-time home buyer is the second-time home buyer, so we're looking at different markets there, right?
Yeah, but also I think if you think about the market holistically, what can happen in areas with really high second home ownership, seasonal homes can reduce inventory quite substantially.
Okay.
And in these situations, the price of the few available homes can increase and reduce affordability in those regions. And it varies quite a lot across the state. So in Bennington, for instance, only about 4% of the housing stock is seasonal homes, but in Manchester, down south, about 54% of the housing stock is seasonal.
Right. Good. Just about a minute left. I'd like to end on a positive note. Is there a solution? Is it as simple as build more homes? We got to get to that 24,000 home list. Is that as easy as that, Mariya, from your research, is just build more homes?
Well, I wish it was that simple. And I do want to say that in Vermont and nationally, the substantial housing supply shortage is well documented. So we know that we need more homes, and we know that rent growth is straining household budgets, and home price appreciation is pushing homeownership further and further out of reach for people. But simply building more homes doesn't always solve the housing affordability challenges. So in a supply and demand model, the idea is that when you build new housing, a process called filtering occurs, where the value of older homes decreases relative to the newly built homes, and older homes become more affordable. So building more homes, in theory, should solve the affordability crisis, but studies have observed significant variation in filtering outcomes across time periods, price points, and regions. Downward filtering of housing can stall or reverse as markets tighten, meaning that building more homes doesn't always increase affordability.
Right. Thank you very much. I appreciate this. Is a big topic to handle. And hopefully we can have you back and talk about home prices when we've built up to 24,000 or whatever. My thanks to the crew behind the scenes here at WCAX who make our program possible. I'm Keith Silva. This is Across the Fence. Thanks for being part of our family.